This is the most complete guide to boxing for beginners on the internet. If you want to discover how to get into boxing, get access to my personally experience-based boxing tips, and see examples of how you can box from anywhere, then you've come to the right place. I've been boxing for over 5 years now. I'm excited to show you what we're going to cover in today's video. So let's dive right in. So in this video, I'm going to go over what it is. I'm going to go over what the rules are. I'm going to talk about the benefits of boxing, how to get started, what equipment you need, what to look out for, how you can punch faster, basic footwork that you need to know, how you can stand when boxing, anger in boxing, teaching yourself how to box, age when you're starting to box, and so much more. So, what is boxing? Boxing is a combat sport which involves two opponents, fighters, who use skill, speed, and accuracy to throw and avoid punches within a 16 by 16 foot ring. The objective is to control the ring by hitting but not getting hit. The more punches that you connect with, the more likely that you'll be able to generate points and be able to get that knockout punch. In professional boxing, a boxing bout typically lasts about 47 minutes. There are 12 3-minute rounds of boxing, and in between each round there is a 1-minute break. Boxing requires a lot of patience, endurance, agility, and perseverance. So much so that boxing is considered one of the hardest sport that humans have ever invented. And the people who have the best footwork after dancers is boxers. The boxing game has been around since 3000 BC, but fighting has been around since the second human. Not only do human beings fight one another, but so do animals, and interestingly, plants fight one another. There's been studies of plants fighting for space and for light, so photosynthesis can occur. So attacking others is wired into our DNA and our long history. What are the rules of boxing? Here are some essential rules of boxing. You can't punch below the belt, hold, kick, trip, wrestle, bite, spit, or shove your opponent. You can't hit with your forearm, elbow, or head. You can't punch your opponent's back, whether that is of the head, neck, or kidneys. There is no hitting with the inside of your glove, wrist, backhand, or the side of your hand. There's no throwing a punch whilst gripping the ropes. No holding and hitting your opponent at the same time. No ducking lower than your opponent's waistline. No spitting out your mouth guard in order to breathe better. No hitting an opponent while he or she is down. So as just a quick side note from the video, if you're into self-development and love reading books and just love personal growth and mentorship, then feel free to reach out to me. I'd love to connect with you. I'd love to jump on a chat. I'm looking to meet like-minded friends, and I'll put my email below, and let's have a chat. So what are the benefits of boxing? There are an endless number of benefits of boxing. Some of these include, number 1, building an incredible VO2 max. Boxing requires a ton of cardio. You're going to be moving around left, right, and center, going for runs and skipping around that boxing ring. And boxing requires a significant amount of upper body movement. So not only moving your feet around and your legs, but you're actually moving your body at the same time, so it's just a full body workout. It's absolutely great for losing weight. The second benefit is that it increases one's discipline, and whether you're looking to compete in boxing or whether you're just doing it for fitness, it will improve one's mental strength. It will improve your willpower and discipline. If you're looking to train for fitness, simply just turning up at the boxing gym or putting your gloves on at home requires a tremendous amount of willpower and discipline. If you're training to compete, you'll have to go through a whole nother level of discipline and mental fatigue that will shape not only your mind but also your body. Not only will you have to diet, but you'll have to train consistently and also have to take quite a few punches to get better and better and better. The third benefit of boxing is making new friends. If you join a good boxing gym, you'll find that the community is very good and that everyone is very close with one another. When I joined my first boxing gym, it was the Like to Box boxing gym. It's just moved to the upstairs from the McDonald's now. It used to be at another place, but I absolutely loved it there. Like the first time I walked in, there was a guy called Jumbo and a guy called Ben who were the main coaches, and they were just incredibly warm, always joking and just really nice people. And we had circuit classes when we were doing it there as well, and all the boxing gyms that I've been to have been very similar to that experience. And So I definitely recommend going. I know it's scary sometimes, but 100% get to that boxing gym. You'll be able to make a lot more friends with it. The fourth benefit of boxing is actually being able to defend yourself. Now, hopefully you would never ever need to, be able to defend yourself. If someone comes up to you in the street, or if someone tries to mug you, or if someone's, enclosed you around you, then there's nowhere for you to run. Then boxing will come to your help. Any trained fighter or boxer will be able to beat up any untrained boxer. And it's just the same with like any trained footballer will be able to get past any untrained footballer. With great skill comes great confidence. So while it's always best to run and get into doing parkour, if you can't, then you will know how to protect yourself and your loved ones. Number 5, it's relatively inexpensive. To get started in boxing, you don't even need to buy a pair of boxing gloves. You can literally just stand up from your chair and just practice shadow boxing. And that's just one way to get started. I would recommend, going to a boxing gym as well, and it's like you might have to pay £10 for a class, or $15 for a class. But usually at good boxing gyms, they have boxing gloves there that you can just borrow, and they'll have hand wraps there as well, and you can just go along and have a bit of fun. Yeah, do get into it. Memberships are usually about £50 a month plus. And boxing gloves, you can get a pair for like £25. In fact, I'll put a link in the description below for like a really cheap pair of boxing gloves. That I'd recommend getting. I've reviewed probably about 50 boxing gloves across our blog and on this YouTube channel as well. So I'll put a link in the description for a good pair that would benefit you. The 6th benefit for boxing: look great in the mirror. There is nothing more satisfying than getting out of the shower and looking at yourself in the mirror and just feeling and looking strong. And you will be able to look like Zeus himself if you consistently go to the boxing gym. If also you eat correctly, because abs are made in the kitchen. So how do you get started in boxing? Number 1, decide where you are going to be boxing. You got 2 options. You could either box at a boxing gym, or you could box from your own home. Now, if it's your first time and you're going to be boxing from home, make sure to watch all of our other videos, and also other videos on the internet out there, to learn how to throw punches. You have the jab, you have the cross, you have the hooks, and you have the uppercuts as well. And just by getting the basics and foundations from this, you can work out from anywhere. But it's important to get the basics, because otherwise you pick up really bad habits, which is why we would recommend going to the boxing gym. Now, if you're going to be going to the boxing gym, try and find one where the coaches really look out for you. They are friendly when you first go there, and they're up for giving you free one-to-one sessions in a circuit class. I'd really recommend finding a gym where the coaches are able to do those one-to-one pad work with you for free. Another thing to think about when getting started in boxing is what type of equipment that you'll need. Are you going to need a pair of boxing gloves? Are you going to need a pair of hand wraps? Are you going to need a punching bag if you're doing it from home? How about what shoes are you going to wear? There are specific boxing shoes for boxing as well, and there's also just general sports clothing that you could wear as well. In terms of the shoes, you can easily just put on a brand new pair of trainers. Most boxing gyms require you to take your shoes off if you haven't got a proper pair of boxing gloves, but boxing shoes rather. You can just walk up and train without having to buy a pair of boxing shoes. Number 3, set yourself some goals. When you start boxing, it can be helpful to set yourself some goals. Are you looking to compete, or are you looking to do some fitness? Maybe write down in your goals list like, I'm going to train in boxing twice a week, or I'm going to go to the gym at least once a week. That's going to be my goal, and I'm going to try to get in shape this summer or this winter. Setting goals can be extremely motivating, and scientists have said that it can encourage people to take action on one's goals. What equipment do you need when starting boxing? As mentioned earlier on the video, you can literally just get up from your chair and start shadow boxing without any equipment whatsoever. But while shadow boxing is great on its own, it's not as good as having loads of different pieces of equipment that you can use to improve your boxing skills. For example, you could get a pair of boxing gloves. A pair of boxing gloves will mean that you can punch punching bags. I'd never recommend punching a heavy bag without a pair of boxing gloves on, because your your knuckles and your proximal phalanx, at risk of being injured. Make sure to get a pair of boxing gloves. And number 2, make sure to get a pair of hand wraps. Hand wraps are important for ensuring that your knuckles can form a fist when clenched, and it just gives you that protection and stability that you'll need when throwing punches at either people or punching bags. Which brings us on to number 3. The piece of equipment that you'll need is a punching bag. Punching bags are soft. You can get water bags, which are slightly harder and are great for sort of uppercut motions. You can get like a double M bag where you can sort of work on your accuracy and your timing. You can get just general heavy bags themselves, and punching bags and the punching bag will just mean that you have something to hit. Number 4, indoor boxing shoes, or simply just indoor brand new trainers. Indoor boxing shoes, and I'll show you my one. Indoor boxing shoes are great for, they're just very light, and it's much easier to sort of pivot on them when you're throwing hooks and a range of your shots. I bought these Lonsdale ones about 4 years ago, and they've just stayed intact. There's a tiny bit of a hole sort of forming there at the sole of the shoe, but it's been excellent, really. These were like £30 back in the day as well, so I'll put a link in the description. You might not be able to get it, but I'll do some research, find some shoes and put them in the description based on what I believe are the best. That being said, you won't always have to buy a pair of boxing shoes just to go to a boxing gym and do boxing. What most boxing gyms will make you do is take your shoes off if you've got trainers on, and then you can just train in barefoot, which is perfectly fine. But yeah, it's harder to pivot on barefoot, so it is better to buy a pair of boxing shoes. That being said, MMA fighters don't even wear any shoes or socks. They just fight without. So what do you need to look out for when you're starting to box, whether from your home or from a boxing gym? Number 1, the quality of the boxing gym that you choose. This is really important because you want to be finding, a gym that will look after you and, make you a much better fighter and looks out for your health and safety. You'll be able to tell if you're going to a bad boxing gym because the coaches just aren't very nice. There's lots of swearing going on, and the vibe just isn't good, and they're making you get in the ring and punch people and get hit yourself. So make sure to watch out for those and find a good place. And there's so many great gyms around. Number 2, boxing is a lot more complicated than you might think. I mean, when you see a couple of shredded men or women in a ring just throwing punches and moving around one another like a dance, it might look easy, but it's really, really hard. There's just so much involved in it. You've got agility, you've got punching power, you've got speed, you've got different stances, you've got different defense, just like the Philly shell, and people with their hands up, people with their hands down, and just people moving around all over the place and slipping and head movement. And there's just so much to think about when you're in the ring with someone, but obviously it just becomes unconscious and natural the more and more you do it, which is why it's like so hard for a professional athlete to describe how to do their sport, because it's unconscious, it's integrated into their DNA, their mind. But boxing is complex. It's like when you first start driving or when you first start boxing, you're really bad at it. You're kind of afraid, not sure how to throw the punch, not sure how to change gear, but eventually with practice you just become better and better, and it becomes more and more enjoyable. Another thing to watch out for is flexibility and mobility. It's really important because you're doing so much high exertion activity, and that can put a lot of strain on your muscles and joints. So it's really important to stay flexible and stretch. Like, you should be able to touch your hand behind your back, and it will just really help general flexibility to be able to throw longer punches because you've got a longer range of motion, and it will also prevent injury as well, because if you're trying to punch with tight muscles, then it can cause muscle strain, and it's just very uncomfortable to have that type of body. So get into yoga, get into a static stretching routine and dynamic stretching routine before you start boxing, because when you start boxing you should do dynamic warm-ups, and that will help you get ready and prepared to face the upcoming grueling workout that is boxing. The 4th thing to watch out for is sore hands. When you first start boxing and you haven't got the right pieces of equipment, or you've got very cheap boxing gloves, when you start punching the bag, it can actually quite hurt. There can be a bit of strain that you might feel there because you're not used to hitting with your hands. A really good soft pair of boxing gloves, 16-18 ounces, could be really beneficial when you're starting out, because it will just protect your hands, and it's really important to make sure you got your hand wraps on as well. And also, a newbie can have sore hands if they are new to the sport and don't know how to throw a correct punch, because you could throw an overhand right and land on your thumb, which could really bruise or injure your thumb. You could hit with your pinky, or your fingers out, which isn't wise either. And it's really important just to get the right technique and punching style. You could also over rotate and potentially pull a muscle because you're punching too hard and with the wrong technique. Number 5 thing to look out for next is how much rest you're taking. So during boxing workouts, you usually have 2 minutes of working out and then 1 minute of rest, sort of emulating what you would in an amateur fight. So a lot of fighters would do 2 minutes of speed bagging, and then they would have a minute rest, or like 2 minutes of shadow boxing with a minute rest, and they'd have 5 rounds of shadow boxing and then 5 rounds of heavy bag, and then 5 rounds of sparring, and so on, until you've finished a good hour's workout or more. It's also important to remember and think about how much rest you're having in terms of the rest days, because if you're brand new to doing physical activity or boxing, then you don't really want to be doing more than 2 workouts a week, and you should be resting the other 5. The more and more you progress, and or if you're already very active as a sports person, then you can do it a little bit more frequently, but it's really important to have at least 1 to 2 days of rest, so that you give your body time to relax and recover. I remember getting a really bad injury because I just trained every day, like twice a day. I was so into it, and I wanted to become the best boxer in history, but I tore my PCL, which put me out of it. So just be careful of how much rest you're having, and it's probably the most important thing to watch out for, actually. I don't know why I covered it so late. Number 6, avoid being the noisy neighbor next door. After 2020, a lot more people are at home. So if you've got a heavy bag and you're indoors, make sure it's not next to the neighbor's wall, or if you're on the top floor and you're making all sorts of noise with your neighbors below, or if you're outside and you're making all sorts of grunts and boxers, they go don't do any of that. It's very annoying. Make sure you're in a big open space, and make sure to treat your neighbor as yourself, and that's it's just a common sense thing. So how can a boxer punch faster and harder? Number 1, master their technique. Isn't it interesting how some boxers are just very, very skinny, yet when you hear them throw a punch, or when you see them throw a punch on TV, they just make an enormous crack, and can put people much bigger than themselves out. And why is that? Well, the reason why is because they've just got superb technique, and they've trained deliberately. They haven't trained mindlessly. They've been focusing on, okay, what is my weakness here, and how could I repeat it and get better at doing this other thing that I should be doing over and over and over again. And they've just been working on that deliberately. Cal Newport came up with the term deliberate practice for that in his book. And it's just really important to be working on things that you could be doing better at, as opposed to just mindlessly hitting the heavy bag and chatting to a mate and throwing a few jabs here and flexing your muscles to the girls. But deliberate practice is the key. Number 2, lift weights. Now, there's a lot of controversy in boxing of whether you should lift weights, whether you shouldn't. Obviously, it's important to listen to your coach and do what your coach says, because it'd be much wiser to spend your time actually improving your technique and doing the rounds in the boxing gym, rather than just going to the gym and with the other bodybuilders doing some bicep curls. But you can use weights for, I don't know, your ab work. You can incorporate weights into what you're doing with your abs. You can use smaller weights to do shadow boxing with it. You could make sure that you've got good posture and you're doing these sort of banded exercises to help with your posture and strengthening your lats and lower and upper back muscles. It's also great to have lower back strength so that you can reduce back pain and just making sure that your conditioning and your overall musculature is high, because it's great to have a high VO2 max, but at the same time it's also important to have strong, fast twitch muscle fibers, and the way you get those is, number one, through boxing itself, and number two, using light weights consistently. So how should you stand when you're boxing? Well, when you're boxing, you could either stand with your left foot in front or with your right foot in front. The left foot in front is called the orthodox boxing stance, and the right foot is the southpaw boxing stance. Typically, people who are left-handed and have a stronger left arm would be on the southpaw stance because they want to have a stronger right hand. But it's, if you're getting into the sport professionally, then you want to be mastering both, like Tyson Fury. But yeah, typically if you're just brand new to it and you're right-handed, you'll be in the orthodox stance with your left foot front and your right foot at the back. Similar to skateboarding or snowboarding, where you would have one foot in front of the other. Now keep your feet hip width apart, and make sure you got a little bit more weight on your back leg, about 60-40, just so you can throw pivots and different punch combinations like that. So as you can see on the screen right now, your front foot must be internally rotated slightly, approximately 30 degrees, and your back foot should be pointing in the same direction as your front foot. So on the left you can see the orthodox stance, and on the right you can see the southpaw stance. And then when you're in range, you move in this boxing stance. You step with your left leg and then your right, so you can punch, and you can follow up with your right hand with your back leg as well. But you always want to be moving in that stance. Unless you're out of range, then you can do like the alley, shuffle backwards and around in a circle. But as soon as you get back into range again, you want to be making sure that you're in that, you're low, and that you're, in that stance. Should you get angry when boxing? No. You see it in the movies where people go ah, and then they start punching around and causing as much destruction as possible. But no, you definitely don't want to get angry when you're boxing, because you want to remain calm and focused, and you want to have relaxed shoulders, and relaxed upper body, and then be able to throw, punches in a calm manner, because that's when you get the most snap from your punches, and that's when, they can just be as effective as possible. It would also help you to read your opponent better and see what they're going to do. Are they moving in for a jab, or are they rotating in a certain direction? Should you be also moving in that direction as well? It's really important just to be calm and focused. Can you teach yourself how to box? Yes, you can absolutely teach yourself how to box. You can be self-learner and look up things online and just follow what other experts are doing. However, it's not the most effective way to get better at the sport of boxing very quickly, because you aren't able to tap into the knowledge of a boxing coach or a training partner who will be able to help you one-on-one. You're also not able to do sparring, which teaches a tremendous amount when fighting, and so I definitely recommend learning how to box in a gym, but you can train from home as well when you've got the foundations right. So when are you too old to start boxing? Now this question was, when I wanted to become pro and wanted to be the best in the world, this was something that was really on my mind, because I started boxing when I was 18 years old, and I just thought to myself, wow, I've got a lot of catching up to do, because there are people who started this when they were 9 and they're just, unstoppable and one of the best out there. So is it too old, to start boxing at 18? For me, definitely not. Anthony Joshua started boxing at 18. All of these people Deontay Wilder also started boxing, at the age of 20, which is quite late in boxing, but he's won nearly all of his fights, and most of them have all come through knockouts. It's never too old to start boxing for fitness, and it's not really too old to ever have a boxing bout. Mike Tyson got back into the ring at the age of 50, coming out of retirement, so you could be that age if you feel like fit for it, then it's never too old to start and get back into the boxing ring, as long as you're not, fighting someone, half your age, then, you should be okay. So when should you start? But what age is like is it too late to start boxing professionally, getting into it? Well, I would say never really, because, it all depends on your luck, it depends on your consistency, it depends on how physically fit you are at the moment. You could be in your 30s and if you train consistently for 5+ years, by the age of 35, you could be, one solid professional boxer. Obviously, well, not obviously, but it's going to be difficult to say that if you're going to make a tremendous amount of money in the sport, because there are people who started this and have been doing it for over a decade and have already built up those 10,000 hours of practice. But if you're in your early 30s or mid 30s, then it certainly is something that you could pursue. I haven't seen it where I can see like a world champion who started in their early 30s that went on to becoming world champ. Which is where you obviously make the big bucks, but you can certainly have a very successful career, and you could also be a sparring partner for a world champ as well, and still earn a tremendous amount of money. So keep it up, and actually leave a comment below if you know someone who has started in that age 30 or maybe age 25 plus or 40 plus that has become a professional boxer. It'd be really interesting to know. If you know anyone, or if you have links or evidence that someone has started later. So what should a male or female boxer wear when they start boxing? For women, you could wear a sports shirt, sports bra, sports socks, sports knickers, boxing shoes, shorts, lightweight compression leggings. And for men, this could be sports shorts, t-shirt, sports socks, sports pants, and boxing shoes. So just trying to think, like, whatever you would wear running, you could also wear that for boxing. And of course, as you get better and more involved in the sport, you can then start purchasing more boxing specific gear. What are the 8 different punches in boxing? Number 1, you have your jab. Number 2, you have your cross. Number 3, you have your hook. Number 4, you have your other hook, rear hook rather. Number 5, you have your lead uppercut. And then number 6, you have your rear uppercut. Number 7, you have your lead hook to the body this time. And then number 8, you have your rear hook to the body. What are some beginner boxing combinations? Number 1, you could have a jab cross, just throwing jab crosses and making sure that you're getting your chin tucked in and that you're throwing fast punches with quick retraction as well from when you're punching, and making sure you're getting full rotation there as well. Number 2, you could do double jabs and cross, so you just do, the second jab is the one that matters the most. And then it's well, it sort of does matter, but the most important thing is what's coming behind that, which is the cross. So double jab, cross, like that. You could have the jab, cross, lead hook, so the 1, 2, 3, and you can do head movement after that, roll. You could do the jab, cross, lead hook to the body, and then lead hook to the head. Mike Tyson loved that. You could also have the 1, 2. You could have the lead hook, and then you could have the rear uppercut, just to follow up through that as well. So there are 5 boxing combinations that you can practice on the heavy bag. Another frequently asked question is, do you need a gum shield when boxing? The answer to that is, if you're getting in the ring and you're going to be sparring with someone, make sure you've got some experience on the bag first before you do, then yes, you'd absolutely want to have a pair of gum shield in. It's imperative that you have one in, because if they clip you, then you know how to answer that. If you're just training on the bag, no, you don't need or if you're just training one-to-one with a coach, then you won't need the gum shield. I'll put a link in the description of where you can buy a gum shield. Can you break your hand when you're hitting your punch bag? Yeah, if you're not wearing a pair of boxing gloves, then yeah, the likelihood of breaking your hand is very high. Or if you've got a very bad pair of boxing gloves on and you haven't got any hand wraps on, then yeah, that could also cause a big injury to your hand and potentially a break. In the early 20th century, there was a lot of hand breaking because the gloves just were really bad. They didn't have an attached thumb, so the thumb would just land and then it would just break the thumb and the fight had to stop. So that's it for today. I really hope you've enjoyed this video for the you know,